I'm talking with Dr. Becky from Brand New Day Enterprises this morning about autism and ADHD. Now, Dr. Becky, you kind of explained some symptoms to both of those for us this morning, but can you get into the causes of autism and ADHD?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. Sometimes this is a very touchy subject, but I was blessed back in it was 2002, went to Washington, D.C. There was an international pediatric conference that was taking place in Washington, D.C. to look at that time it wasn't autism they were looking at, it was ADHD. And we know, based on what physicians from all over the world were saying as it relates to ADHD symptoms in their country, or lack thereof, yet American children have really, really high incidences. What do we know for sure? We know thimerosal, which is a mercury derivative that is, at the time, was in all childhood vaccinations as well as adult vaccinations. But when you're putting a mercury derivative, thimerosal, into a body that just was born, we know for a fact mercury is a neurotoxin. So we know that that's why we started seeing the spike 25 years ago, because they started, instead it used to be you would just get a vaccination at a time. And then about 25 years ago they started multiplying and putting, oftentimes within, let's say, the first 18 months of a child's life, there would be upwards of 18 to 24 different things that were put in the vaccination. So it was such a surge of thimerosal in the body that caused neurotoxic responses. So that is one of the problems that we know we're concerned with. Now the government realized, oh my goodness, this thimerosal is a for real legit problem, so they started minimizing the amount of thimerosal that are in vaccinations. Unfortunately, they put in another preservative that's called 2-PE, and it's phenoxyethanol, but it shuts down the child's immune function, slams it shut. And so when the immune function shuts down, then anything that happens in that child's small little life becomes hypersensitive to any kind of stimuli. They did a really interesting study as it related to the thimerosal, where they were trying to see how much is a safe amount of thimerosal to put in the vaccination before toxic things happen. And they did, of course, did this study with rats. In all of the rats, they had male and female rats. 100% of the male rats that were injected in thimerosal, even in small doses, died. 100%.
Yeah.
The female rats did not die, got sick and suffered neurotoxic responses, but didn't die. And so the scientists are now saying that's probably a cue to why autism and ADHD is a prevalent male disorder. I mean, there are some girls, but by and large, it's 4-to-1 ratio, boys against girls. And yet they're watching all these little mice, or these rats, dying when they're injected in even, mini doses. And so we know that as a parent, you can ask for vaccinations for your children that are free of thimerosal and free of 2-PE. Ask as a parent. You have the right to do that. The vaccinations are more expensive, absolutely, without fail, but they don't contain the toxic chemicals. And to pay an extra $3, $5, $7 for a vaccination to know it doesn't contain those chemicals, as a parent, you have a right to do that. So we know those are some of the primary causes, is just injecting a neurotoxin into that body when there's so little. Some countries, Canada and Japan, don't even start vaccinating until the children are 2 and older, because then they know that their bodies are developed a little bit better and then can handle the vaccinations better. That would probably be something that would be awesome if our country would maybe look at slowing down how quickly they use that vaccination schedule.
Right. Natural treatment options, Dr. Becky.
Well, the good news is there are some really great natural treatment options, but the first thing first is that you want to test those children to find out what chemically is going on in their body, especially, again, if they receive their traditional vaccinations. If they're loaded with mercury, again, with the little teeny hair test, you can clearly see, oh my gosh, look, mercury's off the chart. If it is, there's some wonderful, really awesome, natural, chelating things you as a parent can do to help to pull the mercury out of the child's body. So that's the good news. Again, there are things you can do as a parent to get the toxins out. But we also know that with those vaccinations, oftentimes it messes up the zinc and the copper ratios, which again cause the brains just to kind of short out. So first things first is we need to know what's going on with that child. Is it a mercury overload, or is it something like it's a zinc overload or a copper deficiency? And when we know what's going on, then you can put together a nutritive protocol or a supplemental protocol to get that chemistry back in balance. Once it's back in balance, you're fueling the brain to be able to at least have an opportunity to function better than it is. And again, I saw that with my own child because we were told he would never function beyond a 6-year-old mental capacity. And here he is now, 26 years old, awesome and rock solid.
Wow,
So
that's a story.
yeah, absolutely. So,
Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time this morning.
Again,
But
always.
if people, want more information about this from you, they can check out your website, Brand New Day Enterprises, and contact you, right?
Yes, absolutely right. And please, the test is so easy. Just we take a sample of the children's hair. So it's not painful, no needles, nothing scary, and we can figure out what's going on in that child's brain.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing all of
Thank
this
you
with
so
us
much.
this morning.
Again, so fast. Thank
All
you.
right, we have to take a quick break right now. When I return, I'll be back with the Pigeon Key Foundation. Stay with me.